Hmm. Hi. Watching uh, Matt, Thouartthat, and Corey, Professor Anton's videos on cosmology and certain certain things, certain mentionings that they have has it continues to pique my interest because it seems as if there's a uh, kind of a resemblance between the two of their um, discussions. They seem incredibly similar, and I attribute that to um, more than likely sharing a common reading list and being shuffled through kind of a reiterative, canonized patterns of what it means to go through university in similar schools of thought, and so I was really quite um, you know the subtle touch of each of the conversations about cosmology, where Anton speaks of the uh, the once occurrent event, and he speaks of the kind of the collapse of artifice and synthesis into a singular historic past that takes on, allows a domination of the word natural. And so as to allow um, the historic delineations that separate where we might call a human activity an artifice, because its intentionality comes from non-representationalism, or representationalism of one's mind's eye. Um, and it also seems to require a domination over the word synthesis, where that which is manipulated by man, because man, um, it's interesting because Corey wants to reveal and uncover the man as opposed to other animals because of our activity, our potentiality, our conceptuability. Wants to uh, not make uh, comparisons, um, maintain comparisons to animals. He wants to make certain that we retain a certain special form, and it seems to make sense that we do. I'm still not certain that that's an internalization of vision, an auto-masturbatory, um, because we are human, we're left to only look at how humans organize sort of approach. Um, and then Matt seems to be trying to take, scientism um, and religion, looking at how these two as a binary are pitted against each other, where Anton says the religion has to give way, and I think Anton, though, um, brings into necessarily packages, imports into the allowances that religion has to give to science a footing in science, so much so as to, and it seems that his philosophy disallows a that which goes beyond science. I mean, he's open to mystery, but the mystery, I never hear of him speak of the history of that which science cannot control. Since there's no control of certain events, certain things that are claimed as supernatural or apparitions, and so forth, because there is no control, science cannot take hold of these testimonies, group testimonies, happenings to psychology that appear to be as grounded as the ontic, empirical, practical, ostensive world. And because science cannot gather hold of these phenomena, group shared phenomenon, it's left to dismiss them. So science conveniently takes a whole history of irrational claims and sums them up to perhaps a mythology. Now, Matt seems as if he's sliding back and forth between binaries, such that he would say that a photon is relational to sight. Therefore, one might speak of a photon as a type of pre-evolutionary sight. The way he had phrased it didn't seem to gel well with me. But both of them seem to be tossing back and forth between the binary of science and religion. And the interesting thing is that but both of them seem to want to focus on the interiority of the binary. If you take the 9-dot problem, where you have 9 dots and you have to use 4 straight lines to cross through 9 dots, you find that the answer where the lines connect has to be outside of the 9 dots. It appears that kind of Anton's description of everything, synthesis and artifice, defaulting into, here's an example, how natural is that sound? Where do we end our, there's a whole class of lingually historic words, artifice, and synthetic and manual, that necessarily have to take back seat, apparently, to the claim of that which is natural. Now, the interiority of the 9-dot problem, it appears to me, when I listen to Matt and I listen to Corey, it's as if they're playing the 9-dot problem, but they don't want to do it with a Platonic solid. They want to make certain that they're drawing perhaps a spiral through the 9 dots to complete it. And it's like, well, we're just not going to obey the straight-linedness rule to this, because they're trying to get away from the primitive forms, and so they oscillate like, you know, we all seem to do, where we're cherry picking through histories of time in order to convey words, to help make meaning. And so the nine dot problem, if you drew a line down the center, and you said the left side is religion and the right side is science, you'd have a binary. And then it seems as if their answers are a spiraling or a joculation back and forth between these two. And so I'm unsympathetic to the ultimate ends of what they're saying. Like, it feels as if there's something, you know, subtle, yeah, nuanced, and grandiose about what they're saying, and yet there's something that always seems amiss. And so when I think of the nine dot problem and how some of the tangents to maintain the Platonic history, the solids of the straight line, to think about that straight line as straight line and not some other math that allows it to curve. The answer to a binary, any binary, seems to be dealt with by these two from an internalized ejaculation, a bending of the rules, instead of finding a glove, wrapping the binary together, putting a glove on it, finding that the tangent that allows the nine dot problem to be completed is found outside of the binary. And by this, I mean to bring in the notion of science and religion, but I also mean to bring in, on an internalized side, a loss of internal monologue in terms of one's conscious relation to their environment, a collapse of the internal monologue of the individual. Some say that's impossible. I accuse people that say it's an impossibility of being too caught up within the body of text, where the inner dermis is text, and when they punch through the inner dermis, they find a scale, a scaling of text, and that so that would be the internal loss of monologue, where on the outside of the science religion binary, but more on the outside of the religious end, I would suppose, since it's still these claims of supernatural and apparitions and so forth that go beyond simply stating that these are imaginations or objects of the mind instead of objects of the sense. Those seem, in the exteriority of the binary, to lie at a tangent that is outside of both the binaries, and so it would turn, instead of melding the binaries and joculating between the two, is absence a type of presence, or is presence a type of absence, where if you say presence is a type of absence, you might be looking at the history, you know, the fact that we once were, that everything that is now once wasn't, and so that presence came from absence, so that presence is a type of absence. And then on the flip-flop, you could look at, which is a very grounded, you know, the scientific, and that seems to be the scientific side, where on the other side, if you say absence is a type of presence, then it seems to allow for error. It seems to allow for coordinating one's lingual habits to not, kind of like when you learn to ride a bike, and then after you learn to ride a bike, you no longer have to think about how to ride the bike. It becomes second nature, and so there's the means of losing one's lingual connectivity, the necessity to ostensibly point, the habituation of the scientist as opposed to the spiritualist. And so absence as a type of presence is finding something like considering the air between or amongst objects to be vacant, and hence then it seems when one can't find the connectivity, one then looks at the relational aspects between objects, and then we have the grammar of prepositions for that explanation. And but if absence as a type of presence, if one loses the necessity of their viewing the ontic, viewing the empirical, ostensible ground, it doesn't mean from an outside community's perspective that they're still not following it, but to the individual that leaves this ground, they might find themselves more like a floating spirit that is not of the earth, that is in the earth but not of the earth, which is a religious kind of mandate in certain communities, and that so the binaries flop together if we, instead of taking absence as a type of presence, or and saying that is my religiosity, that's my spiritualism, my theology without the dogma, and then saying presence is a type of absence, which is a grounding secular scientific explanatory means, and then saying we have a whole history of testimonies, but science can't control these apparently once occurring phenomena that so many people claim. And it appears that the university does not want to take seriously that which cannot be studied, and these claims are outside of control, and hence they're left as kind of blip points. And so to take a binary and look at it as the 9-dot problem, and then sheath it and say that the tangent is somewhere outside. The meaning is found outside of both science and religion. It's it's a pseudo religio-scientism, is kind of what I'm driving at, I suppose. So I'm not certain what to say. It's I don't agree that the idea of the zero, meaning a disagreement, the awe that Anton wants to bring in, the artifice and the synthetic, and call that natural, right? But then he wants to make a delineation that does not allow the superlative experiences to be included. So he's got a line, a delimiting line that maintains kind of the outline of his footing, right? And but but why I'm like, to me, the line of artifice, the line of synthetic, that which is parasitic, or that which sheathes the binary, making it tertiary, making all binaries tertiary, is a Platonic escape. It maintains the history of Platonic forms without curving the space for justification to avoid the jocularity, where my unintuitive my unintuitive feelings are that that the idea that a photon is a pre-sight, to claim its relation to sight, seems as if it requires a description, a mechanical description of sight. And so I'm not partial to that, because in the same way that I don't look at metal as being relational to driving a car, although we can see it there, I draw a line of synthesis and artifice away from what we would say is the natural occurrence of the metal. But my claim about language, why once again always it appears I'm unsympathetic to Anton, is that the absorption, the domination of saying that nature predominates over artifice and synthesis and so forth, is an attempt to collapse synthesis and nature. Is nature a type of synthesis, right, which would be a spiritual claim, or is synthesis a type of nature? And so he constantly, at convenience, relies on abiding to a side within a claimed binary. And then when you speak about the epistemology, the fact that we do have words that describe such things, that allow us vernacularly, his drive is to bond science and religion, where mine is to bond the street urchin with the nobleman. It's to make certain that the art that I produce maintains a jocularity with something that's pre-juvenile through juvenility, and that my color correspondence maintains that, while the subject matter takes on a directional meaning patterns, depend on in what order does one want to read the symbols found within art. Anyway, and so I don't know whether or not I'm entirely being clear, but it's kind of like the idea of where, when Anton will be odd at the zero, and I keep thinking about the notion of the error, right? If somebody makes a mistake, right, then that is also included in the once occurrent humanity. Since we are an animal that can imagine our absence, that is also included, because we are an animal who speaks vernacularly. That is included within the natural. All the binaries, hence the discussion seems once again to boil down to a focus on linguistic pocketings. At least that's how I look at it. Because Anton can't have it both ways, meaning he can't stave off artifice and error and the parasite around binaries. He can't keep all of that out, right? He must, of his own definition of trying to include synthesis and artifice into nature, if he is going to collapse it that way, then he must include the absence and the contradiction and the error and the parasite and every other thing. He must include the denial of his own claim, right? But that would stop one's spirit from having orientation, so to speak. And he's way too caught up, and that's what I mean. I think he's calibered through the university canon, and so his textual descriptions only ever read and defer to other textual descriptions. He therefore then must default to a site in the binary in order to circulate and joculate and understand the binary, instead of saying, oh, it's both and it's neither the binary, and then the both neither binary occurs. The idea of where Matt brings up space, space is not nothing, right? When the historical vernacular of zero is an absenting, it's not, the one is the presence because it's a singular straight Platonic line. It's got the font mark on the top, boom, boom, it's a presence, it's a singular presence. The zero, the O, is not about, the O with the line through it, it's about the space. It's about the space of the O. It's not about the line of the O, right? And this could be argued, no, it's about the line of the O, just like the one. It's the presence of the one, not the absence of the zero. So this denial of the nothing, which also must be included in both of their descriptions, which they seem to, like I said, both Matt and Anton want to, they need to. I think every footing requires a bias. So even Derrida said that he's cautious that his own work can be deconstructed. Because of this, the idea of using the vernacular notion of nothing first as a supplement for air, oh, what's in the box? Nothing. Oh, well, certainly there's air in the box, right? And so then we say, well, let's bring us to a vacuous area, space, vacuous, no air. Oh, well, there's nothing there. Oh, well, and then Einstein takes the previous ether and he dissolves it, and then we have new science that kind of reintroduces the occurring energy and what we might call the ordering the field itself of space, right? But then we still lingually, epistemologically say, here's a particle and here's a clump of energy and here's another clump of energy. And so there's always the space between the rounded off, the definitional senses, and that becomes where historically we point to a relational sense. We have a definitional and relational binary that to deny the nothing, right? To deny the nothing is to collapse that binary. And once again, I think it's done through a jocularity as opposed to like a finding a sleeve or an exteriority to the binary that one would want to bring in to discuss the binary. So this functions as my range of groundedness and theology. Hopefully I've expressed that. I guess the last thing I want to bring up is the idea where Anton always speaks about evolution it's a fact, and which is fine, but the idea of saying, since we can't imagine an us without being, we have to conclude we can't deny the past. Hence, we are a product of organizational as a community of language speakers. We are able to organize the universe, and that the universe, without our stating or laying down or placing truisms or paradigms, visions of what it is to see space, to see light, to enter into our universe, right? Without a community of language speakers always able to iterate an organization, even my compliance to a Platonic straight-linededness for form is an inheritance, as opposed to using a curve-linededness to solve, the nine-dot problem, or to annihilate the nine-dot problem as a nine-dot problem. This idea, I have to comply with the idea that there is no sun. We're neither in a geo or heliocentric solar system universe without humans. One human can always die out because a new one is brought in, and the language remains independent of the human. So this is where you get people claiming that truth is outside of the human. It's found within the linguistic play. Hence, organization is found within the linguistic play. So without humans, then you have no linguistic play. You have no cardinality to retain a Platonic form or to abuse it, to joculate. Because of that, I think that to speak about the Earth going around the sun absent of all humans is complete nonsense. To even speak about us being on a spherical planet, any type of planet, to speak is gone. That's why I like my argument about, the antinatalist goal is to remove logic from the universe. Without humans, you don't have the language. You don't have the truth that lies within the organizational aspect of the language. Well, I think it's time for painkillers. Anyway, I don't know, I think I'll post this to Matt's video and see what he has to say about that. Alright, word, painkillers.